morning. My name is Maggie Reri. I'm the CEO of Tifa Research. Thank you for making time to be here in person and also joining us through the online link for this particular presentation. I just want to remind you where we've come from. Tifa Research has been polling for the last 2 years and providing information about the presidential race, who's popular, and many other issues through the elections. The last survey we did, before this one we're presenting, we collected the data between the 22nd of April and the 26th of April. And we published the data, and that's available in the public domain. Now, this survey, we did it yesterday, the 17th of May. And of course, it comes off the naming of the running mates by William Ruto and Raila Odinga, and also Kalonzo Musyoka. Now, what we are seeing is, and we'll be presenting to you, and these are questions that a lot of people have been asking us, after the running mates have been named, what has the impact been on the presidential candidate popularity? And that's what we'll be sharing with you today. We collected the data yesterday in one day. We collected the data through a telephonic survey. We had over 100 of our staff making calls yesterday. The questionnaire was quite short because we only have like 4 questions: presidential candidate popularity, popularity of the political coalitions, awareness of whether of the various running mates, and also awareness of the, not awareness, popularity of the various political parties. And of course, the demographics. I'm reminded by Dr. Tom. So, very short questionnaire. We had over 100 people calling yesterday. Started calling around 8 o'clock in the morning. By evening, we had finished achieving the sample size we had to do, which was 1,719. That's the power of technology, that you can be able to collect data really fast. And even as we're collecting the data, we had a team going through the responses that are coming in for proper quality control. What do we do for quality control? All the interviews that come in are recorded. We have a team listening to the way the questions are asked and the responses that are coming in. And then when analyzing the data, we also do various quality controls. So I don't want to take too much time. I would like to invite my colleague, Dr. Tom Wolf, who's going to...
About that?
Why don't they ask later?
Oh,
yeah.
You'll be here.
Yes, I'll be here. So what we'll do, we'll make a presentation about everything, and then after that you can ask about the methodology and any other findings that we have. So let me invite Tom. I don't think he's a stranger to the Kenyan population. Let me invite him because he's a guru in opinion polling and politics and the science of data collection on politics in Kenya. Karibu, Dr. Tom Wolf.
Thank you, Maggie. Although I was very, not stressed, but it was a bit of a challenge last night to be preparing the presentation while watching some of the very interesting discussions on your television channels, stations. Okay, I won't repeat what Maggie said. We'll just get right to the data. And then at the end, please feel free to ask questions. As we say in the beginning of the presentation here, between now and the election, there may be, there's likely to be a number of very dramatic events which could have an impact on how people vote. But as far as I can tell, those are unknown, unpredictable. But one very dramatic event, which was predictable and was, of course, required by law, is for presidential candidates to name their running mates. And although the deadline was last night at midnight, I believe, it was interesting and significant that all the 3 main candidates, there may be others who have applied to IEBC to be candidates. I saw a figure of 47 potential independent candidates who are trying to be cleared. I'm not sure how many will be or how many got their papers in with their running mates by last night. But this all happened within just a 48-hour period, really Sunday and Monday. And of course, under the new Constitution, this is only the 3rd election where presidential running mates have had to presidential candidates have had to identify their running mates. In the old days, it was done after. And even in 2013, it was known for months that Uhuru Kenyatta would be pairing with William Ruto, and that Raila Odinga would be pairing with Kalonzo. I don't remember exactly how many months, but for quite some time. Remember, originally, that election was going to take place in December 2012, and the Supreme Court pushed it up to March the 4th of 2013. So we knew for quite a long time. Likewise, in the last election, it was a foregone conclusion that President Kenyatta would be running again with his deputy, and that former Prime Minister Odinga would be running again with the former Vice President, Mr. Kalonzo. So this situation of the drama was really unprecedented. And you people who are in the media business, of course, you were following all of the intrigues, the rumors, twists and turns, and so on. So that's why in the immediate aftermath of this, as Maggie said, starting yesterday, we thought, let us strike while the iron is hot and see basically two questions. What proportion of Kenyans are aware of the identity of these running mates? And then asking about the presidential election contest, has this made any difference in just the 3 weeks since Tifa did its last survey? We start with political party alignment. We see, as over the last several surveys, UDA is the most popular party, followed by ODM. But we still have a considerable proportion, nearly 1 in 5, who said they don't identify with any, whether because they don't like political parties or they're just not interested. We have another 13% who said they're undecided, suggesting that once they see the final list of candidates, they may answer this question in a more specific way by naming a party, but they're not prepared yet. And then we had another few, 6%, who just declined to answer the question. They weren't interested at all. When we look at the popularity of parties across the regions, we can see that UDA is most popular in Rift Valley, which we have divided into 2 zones for reasons that we explained in the past, Central Rift and South Rift, at over 50%. Those are outright majorities. ODM is most popular in Nyanza for reasons which are obvious, at 58%. The Wiper Party is most popular in Lower Eastern, which includes, of course, the 3 counties of Ukambani. And then what remains of Jubilee, only 3% nationally, but it has twice that percentage popularity in the Mount Kenya area of 6%. But as you can see at the bottom, reflecting the figures we gave you before, large proportions are either undecided, say they don't identify with any, and then a few who didn't answer the question. Looking at the trend over the last 2 years, since we started collecting this information, 23 months precisely, from June of 2020, we don't see very many changes in the last couple of surveys, the 3 this year, but as we pointed out in the past, the almost complete collapse of Jubilee from about 40% 2 years ago to only 3% now. We do see a slight decline in those who are undecided also. And a little bit of a decline in UDA from the last survey, from 37 to 29%, 6%. Keeping in mind the margin of error for this survey is about 2.5%, plus or minus. And even a slight decline in support for, and a slight increase in ODM support from 18% up to 7%. That's significant, which should give you a hint about how things have changed with regard to the presidential race itself. As far as the coalitions are concerned, sorry, some people are just coming, better late than never. And you can see the question at the bottom: which political grouping or formations, coalition, whatever, are you that you're do you feel closest to support? Azimio has the plurality, and remember, plurality means the largest number in a group of numbers, but less than 50% plus one or more. At 38%, whereas just over a quarter, 28%, identified with Kenya Kwanzaa Alliance. Had nearly a third who said they hadn't decided or don't identify with any, and OCA on its own received support of just 3%. Now, when we looked at these results in terms of political parties, we saw, not surprisingly, that almost all of our respondents who said that they feel close to ODM, which, as you saw in the previous slide, was 29%. Almost all of that 29%, 96% of them, said they also support Azimio. And among the 25% of Kenyans who identified with, 29% who identified with UDA, 85% of them also identify with Kenya Kwanzaa. Why the gap of 11%? Why are people who support UDA less likely to support the larger coalition of which it is a part than are those who identify with ODM and support Azimio? Is it because more followers of UDA don't really see the need of that coalition? Because until recently, the deputy president had said we don't need to have small community-based political parties and so on. Are more of UDA supporters going to vote for what we call straight tickets or six-piece? So they don't need to be interested in coalitions or other parties. It's not a huge difference, but I think that gap of 11% is interesting for our friends in political science who are studying party politics and coalition politics. Looking at the distribution of support for these coalitions or alliances across the country, we can see that Azimio is most popular, a clear majority of 66% in the former Prime Minister's home area of Nyanza. But it's also the most popular coalition in a number of other places, such as Coast, Lower Eastern, Nairobi, Northern, and Western as well. But we just highlighted in blue the zone where it has the highest level of support. And the same thing for Kenya Kwanzaa. Its highest levels of support is just at 50%, both in Central Rift and in South Rift. And OCA has its highest proportion of support in Lower Eastern, though only at 8%. But again, at the bottom, as compared with political party support, we see even higher numbers of those who say none or that they're undecided. Whether those figures will decrease as we move towards the election and people begin to see that there have been deals worked out within the coalitions, maybe one candidate or another will step down so they won't split the vote within their coalition, allowing possibly the opposing coalition or party to win the seat. As these arrangements become clearer, I would expect those numbers at the bottom to go down, but we don't predict anything in this business. We just report what we've got. And then we came to the question of running mates. And the first question was, as far as you're aware, please tell me who is the running mate of presidential candidate Raila Odinga. Please tell me who it is of presidential candidate William Ruto. And who is it for presidential candidate Kalonzo Musyoka? And you can see in green, among all our respondents, that 85% were able to mention Martha Karua. Among those who had said, or who came to say that they were going to vote for Raila Odinga. Among William Ruto's supporters, only 59% sorry, only 69%, let me back up. And the total population of all respondents, only 59% were aware or could remember, although it had just happened the day before, on Sunday, that Honorable Rigathi Gachagua had been announced by the Deputy President as his running mate. And far fewer of all our respondents, the 1,719, could mention the name of Andrew Sumkuli as the running mate announced on Monday by Kalonzo Musyoka. So these names were not read out. That's why we say correct identification. Not, are you aware that so-and-so has been announced, and people say yes or no, because many people would say yes just to look like they knew. So there was no prompting here. Now, getting to the red, those who said later that they were going to vote for Raila Odinga, 90% of those people had mentioned Honorable Martha Karua as a running mate. Almost all, but not quite all. Somewhat fewer of those who said they were going to vote for William Ruto mentioned his running mate, only 69% of them. And that's a 21% difference. And among those who said they were going to vote or would vote for Kalonzo Musyoka, only 38% could mention his running mate. Now, I cannot give a definitive explanation for this. I will just offer my personal opinion and give two possible reasons that could explain why so many more of Raila Odinga's would-be voters could give us the name of his running mate, that is Honorable Karua, than could the supporters of the other two candidates. And I say there's two. Number one, Martha Karua has been in public life much longer than these two gentlemen. As was pointed out, I think she was first elected as an MP in '92. She served in cabinet. She's been the leader of Nar Kenya Party for quite some time. And even if she hasn't been holding elective office since she stood for the presidency in 2013, which also gave her a lot of publicity when there were 8 candidates, she is clearly, among everybody, a better known figure, as we saw. 85% versus 59% for Honorable Gachagua and just 21% for Sumkuli. And the second one, I think, is because of you people. The media attention, well, I can't blame you. There was so much media attention on the Monday event at KICC. It was like a public rally almost. There were many, many more people there than there had been at the Deputy President's residence or the other venue on Monday where former Vice President Musyoka announced his running mate. And because I had the television, I was watching live stream most of the time, the event at which the former Prime Minister announced his running mate, Honorable Karua, it went on for hours, and it started 2 hours late. So those are possible reasons why more people are aware of her as a running mate. But those are just my suggestions. I can't be sure. One thing I can be sure of is that in the coming weeks, if not coming days, everybody's going to know the identity of these running mates. They're going to be campaigning, they'll be on television, they may have debates and so on and so forth. So I expect that the figures for all of them, all 3 of them, are going to go up. Whether they'll reach 100% by the 9th of August, I don't know, but I think they would be pretty close to 100% by then. But as Maggie was suggesting at the beginning, we wanted to capture in this survey, conducted yesterday all day, whether in the very first, not even days, but the first hours of the announcement of these running mates would have any impact on people's voting intentions. So that's why we did the survey. And these are the results that we got. That 39% of our sample said that they would be voting for Raila Odinga as president. and Martha Karua as his running mate, and slightly fewer, 35%, said they would be voting for the deputy president and his running mate. And far, far fewer, just 2%, said, as of now, or as of yesterday, they would be voting for Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. We still have 14% who said they were undecided, 1% who said they wouldn't vote, whether because they're not registered or they have no interest in presidential election this time, and another 8% who wouldn't give us their voting intention. Spread across the country geographically, you can see that Raila and Karua are most popular in Nyanza with about 2/3 of our respondents there. We still have 14% in Nyanza who say they're undecided. So the game is not over there. And we have 11% in Nyanza who said they would vote for the deputy president and his running mate, Honorable Gachagua. The deputy president is most popular in the South Rift with the same, well, 2/3. Sorry, Raila's at 69 with Martha Karua in Nyanza, and the deputy president and his running mate 66 in South Rift, and almost as popular in terms of express voting intentions in the Central Rift at 59%, and nearly twice as popular in terms of express voting intentions in the Mount Kenya zone, 46% versus 24%. Despite the fact that both of the running mates come from that Mount Kenya zone. And we see that the former vice president, Honorable Musyoka, and his running mate are most popular in Lower Eastern, but with just 15% as of now, fewer expressed votes than for either of the other two presidential pairs, with Raila, Odinga, and Martha Karua at 36%, and William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua at 23% in the Lower Eastern areas. If we just count these up, we can see that the Azimio pair are most popular in how many zones? Coast is 1, Lower Eastern is 2, Nairobi is 3, Nyanza is 4, and Western is 5 out of the 9 zones that we have. Whereas the deputy president is most popular in Central Rift 1, Mount Kenya 2, Northern 3, South Rift 4. So 5-4 is how these zones are divided. But recall that the number of registered voters in each of these zones is very, very different. So you can't predict, even if the election were held tomorrow, just on the basis of the distribution of support by zone. You have to look at the total figures. We also, given the, how can I say, the major innovation or breakthrough of having such a female candidate for such a senior position, the second most powerful in government, we wanted to look and see if there was any particular distribution of support when we analyzed our results by gender and also by age. Now, if some of you can remind me, but I think in the last election we had one or more presidential candidates who did have women running mates. I can't remember if there were 1 or 2 or maybe even 3. There were several, but these people got less than 0.5% of the vote. So nowhere near what Kenyan voters are presented with now, that is having a woman who is in a very competitive position to actually become the next deputy president, at least on the basis of what our survey results are showing now. So we see that in gender terms, about 8% more men at the moment express support or voting intentions for Mr. Odinga and Ms. Karua than women. But that's not really because there's so many more women who are supporting the other main pair of candidates, but rather that among the undecided and among those who didn't give us an answer, there were so many more women. 19 versus 9 women versus men who were undecided, and 10 versus 5 who didn't answer the question. Whether in the coming days, weeks, 83 days left now before the election, the simple biological fact that the Azimio running mate is a woman will bring more women voters over to that pair of candidates remains to be seen. We saw all the celebrations at KICC by women and also through live feeds from Kirinyaga and some other parts of the country, I believe, celebrating that aspect of Honorable Karua's identity beyond the others that she had. We also know that the deputy president was also giving very, very serious consideration to two women elected office holders, both Governor Anne Waiguru in Kirinyaga, and I believe Alice Wahome in Maranga. I forget her constituency just for the moment, but ultimately neither one of those was selected. Maybe it would have been a more exciting campaign period, at least from the gender perspective, if each of those presidential candidates had a woman as a running mate, but that's not to be. In terms of age, we see that older people are slightly more inclined as of now to support the Odinga Karua ticket, 43% versus 35%, whereas the deputy president's support is equal across these two age groupings at 35% each. We see that younger voters are slightly more numerous in terms of being undecided, 17% versus 11%, but that's really the only difference. Whether we will see an equal level of voter turnout among the different age groupings is another issue. When we looked at the trend slide over the last 23 months, again now for the presidential contest, and remember this is the first result in which we've had the presidential candidates firmly identified with a running mate, since the deadline, as I said, for handing in those names was Monday at midnight, and we see for the first time the former Prime Minister taking the lead. Whether this is because of his selection of a running mate, because remember 90% of his supporters were aware that Honorable Karua had been given that, had succeeded in that selection process, or whether his numbers would have gone up anyway for other reasons, we can't say. We also should note that over the last 23 months, the deputy president's figures have remained within this very narrow band of between 35 and 39%. He's just where he was, I can see, in December of 2020, no lower. But even now that the presidential candidates have announced their running mates, we still thought it's useful to give you this trend for comparison. And to be more precise, since our last survey just 3 weeks ago, to look at the changes in support, expressed voting intentions by the different parts of the country, we can see that Raila Odinga has gained in Central Rift by 9% just in 3 weeks. He's gained at the coast 13%. He's gained a little bit in Lower Eastern. He's gained a little bit in Mount Kenya. He's gained a bit more in Nairobi, 9%. No change up north. He's gained 13% in his home Nyanza zone or area. And he's gained 12% in Western. Only in the South Rift, which includes Kajiado, and Narak counties, has his level of support gone down, which helps to explain his overall increase from our last survey of 7% under the total at the far left. For the deputy president, Mr. Ruto, as we said, overall he's had a drop of 4%, And when you look at the distribution of the change over just the last 3 weeks, you can see where that arithmetic comes from. He's dropped 11% in Central Rift, his home area, a little bit in Lower Eastern, 5%. He's dropped on the mountain a little bit, 7%. In Nairobi, 6%. He's gone up in the northern counties, which is all of northeastern, and then Marsabit, Turkana, by 9%. He's gone down by 10% in Nyanza. He's also gone up in the South Rift by a very hefty 26%, and basically unchanged in western, considering the margin of error, about 3%. Weather, again, when, in addition to regular campaign activities, the identity of his, let me just go back to this slide, when the identity of his running mate, Honorable Gachagua, becomes more known in the country above this 59% as of yesterday, that will boost the Deputy President's overall standing. Again, we'll have to wait and see. Even if there'll be other campaign activities and events that'll take place that makes it very difficult in a survey to identify the impact of any particular factor. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I would just like to make a couple of quick points in conclusion. And first I'll go back to this slide. Because people are undecided, either do not vote or they make up their mind. And because people who, the 8% who didn't answer a question, either do not vote or don't make up their mind, please, when you are reporting these results, do not say, as many people did in the media when they were reporting the results of another survey a couple of days ago, that there must be a runoff because nobody has 50%. That doesn't make any sense. In my view, which could be wrong, unless the total vote of all the other candidates for president and deputy president, besides the top two, are equal to at least 4 or 5%, it's very unlikely that either one of those pairs won't get above 50%, because you have to subtract all those other people of the undecided, will not vote, and no response before you do your arithmetic, before you divide by the total number. So on the basis of this survey, there is absolutely no basis for saying that there would be a runoff. But you might come and tell me, remember in 2007, when the main competition was between Mwai Kibaki, now the late, may he rest in peace, and Raila Odinga, who each got about somewhere between 43 and 45% of the vote, Kalonzo Musyoka stood on his own, got between 9 and 10% of the vote. Now, of course, that was under the old Constitution, which did not have a requirement of 50% plus 1 and at least 25% in at least 24 of the 47 counties. But now we do have that requirement. So I would suggest the closer to that 9% that former Vice President Musyoka got in 2007, that is, the more that he can go up from 2% now towards 9%, the greater will be the possibility of a runoff contest, because by doing so, and remember there's all these other candidates, we don't know how many yet, together they all might get 1 or 2%, that would increase the possibility of the necessity of a runoff, which I believe would take place 30 days from the announcement of the result of this election on August 9th. But as of now, we don't see that percentage. Obviously, if William Ruto and Raila Odinga both get 49% and Kalonzo and the other candidates get 2 or 3%, there would have to be a runoff if neither one gets over the top, that threshold. But that we don't see. And maybe I'll make one other final comment. We have seen in recent weeks or even months, forget Tifa or InfoTrack or whoever else, Radio Africa, who were doing our surveys and so on and giving you our results. We have seen the political parties and coalitions themselves to an unprecedented degree doing their own surveys and even telling us, sometimes even telling us the results. I was watching Professor Senator Kithure Kindiki being interviewed last night, and he, again, as others have made reference to several surveys that were done in the process used by Kenya Kwanza of identifying their deputy presidential running mate. And you know what those results were. As I recall, there was a general survey among the public in the Mount Kenya area, and then among all the MPs aligned to UDA and Kenya Kwanza in the Mount Kenya area. And we also heard from Azimio. We heard from, I think, a month or two ago, from Raila Odinga's campaign chair, independent governor Ndiritu in Laikipia, that Azimio was using polls to identify the most popular candidate in many electoral units, from governor down to, I guess, MCA, to save themselves all the expense and, in some cases, turmoil of having to have actually nominations through voting. So this is absolutely unprecedented. But we have also seen, and my concluding point, that when it comes to the actual selection of the running mate by the presidential candidate, in addition to survey results, there are obviously very important factors that have to be taken into account. If I recall, in surveys that were done by Tifa and some other companies, respondents identified Musalia Mudavadi as the best running mate for the deputy president. And Raila had a number of people who were identified, including, very prominently, Honorable Karua. But as the deputy president explained in his press conference, there are other factors that have to be taken into consideration. And you people in the media, analysts, on talk shows and so on, have identified some of these. Mobilization capacity, or at least estimated mobilization capacity of the vote, the personal relationship between the two, so that they work as a very smooth team if they have the honor of being elected. It's also been mentioned what sort of access do they have of resources to be used during the campaign, and so on and so forth. So however prominent polls have been with regard to these very dramatic announcements that we've seen in the last couple of days about the running mates, for better or worse, opinion polls are not the only determinant of these very difficult decisions that have to be made. Just finally, I saw in the New York Times the other day an article where supporters of American Vice President Kamala Harris were complaining, saying President Joe Biden needed her in order to become president. But since being sworn in, over more than a year and a half now, he hasn't been giving her enough responsibilities as Vice President of the United States to build her for the future, saying that he should, because without her he wouldn't have been elected. So this relationship between a president or a presidential candidate and a deputy is a very complicated one in all political systems. And I'll stop there. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer, and Maggie would too. And just to quickly review the demographics, as Maggie explained, I think she's already covered this. And this is our breakdown of how we distributed the sample on the far left by zone, based on the distribution of IEBC registered voters, which is a little bit different from the 2019 census, the gender distribution, age, and then education level of our respondents. Questions? But don't ask too tough ones. I don't want to be unable to answer them. Yes, please. Just tell us where you're from, which media house, and then ask your question. Yes.
What explains basically the constant decline in rural population?
Wait a minute. Constant decline, I'm not sure what you're talking about. For the previous 1, 2, 3, 4 surveys, statistically they were identical. 39, 38, 38, 39. So I think your question is a bit incorrect. You mean just in the last 3 weeks? Okay, that's not constant. As I said, I can't answer the question to what extent, even just a day or two after the announcement of running mates, whether that explains it. Your guess is as good as mine. In fact, I read your stories in the Star. You probably know more about these political dynamics than I do. But I just suggested that the fact that whatever benefit as an increase in the vote basket that the deputy president expects his running mate to bring him, the fact that only 2/3 of his own supporters are even aware, as of yesterday, who his running mate is, it means the players are still on the pitch. Whether that accounts for it, I mean, your question is too tough, so don't ask me any more like that. Yes, please. From where? Yes. Okay, that's a good question. I hope I can answer in English at least first. Azimio is clearly a corporation or a conglomerate of more larger, distinct entities that have come together to form Azimio. It goes beyond just ODM, as you know, the other constituent parties. I mean, Jubilee is also in there. KANU is also in there. I forget the others that are there. Wiper, of course, is in there. So even if OCA now has separated itself a little bit, and I'm not even entirely sure about KANU, because whereas we saw the party secretary general Nick Salat at the KICC event celebrating the announcement of Martha Karua, the party chairman Gideon Moy was shown later in the day with former Vice President Musioka when he was announcing his running mate. So I'm not sure where KANU is right at the moment. But nevertheless, I think that that if you unpack the membership of parties within these different coalitions, that will help to explain that. But that's a very good anomaly or inconsistency that you pointed out. Also, I think, I might be wrong, as I said earlier, until just recently, the deputy president was saying, we don't need alliances or coalitions. UDA can go on its own. It was only when he managed to successfully invite Musalia Mudavadi and Senator Wetangula that he got Ford Kenya and ANC that he had to, build a bigger roof to fit everybody in. So I think the marketing of Azimio as a coalition has been going on for a bit longer. But it's a good question, and I can't give a complete answer. Yes?
Dickens from Hope TV. As per your poll, what are the counties in Central Rift and what are the counties in South Rift? And also, why would you ask questions about OCA, yet OCA and Azimio are one thing?
No, we didn't ask. That's a good question. I'll answer the second first. It's what people said. Because the question didn't say, do you support OCA or Azimio or whatever? If you see at the bottom, which political groupings or formation do you feel closest to? So if people said OCA, we captured the data like that. But you were correct that OCA, as we were saying about KANU in a way, we're not sure if it's, it's been sort of changing, basically reflecting Mr. Musioka's calculations and moves. But the first part of your question, the list of counties in each of our zones, I thought we had that in this presentation. We usually give it. Did we forget it, Maggie?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm opening it for you.
I'm not seeing that list of zones, which I think got left out. But we'll slip that, pardon?
voted in?
If you want to know, but I think that should be put into the,
Okay.
yeah, to see which county is in which zone. Good question. Anyone else? Yes, please.
My name is Benjamin Mwaka from Odinga. From your poll, I can see a Raila Karua ticket is more popular in Lower Eastern, where Kalonzo Musyoka comes from. Because Raila Karua ticket has 36%, then Kalonzo and Sunguli.
Yes, we're showing it on the
has
screen.
15%.
That's right. Even the Ruto Gachagua ticket is more popular.
Okay. So my question is, what are the possible answers which, when you are conducting it, what were they telling you? Why?
We didn't ask, why do you support? As Maggie said, we wanted to finish it as quickly as we could in one day, and we did. So we didn't ask any, why do you say that questions? And I, as a researcher and somebody who has studied Kenyan politics and still confused by a lot of it, I really like asking those why questions, but we didn't. So if you were asking me why, it's just speculation. It seems to me, and everyone's free to their opinion, and I speak this as say this as myself, not on behalf of Tifa, that until very recently, I mean almost until the weekend, many people were expecting either that Kalonzo Musyoka would be named the running mate, or that he would support whoever Raila Odinga named, even if it wasn't himself. But we saw within hours that he had decided to go it alone. So it may take some time. Wait for our next survey. If he's been actively campaigning, whether in his home Lower Eastern area or all over the country or both, let's see. As I said, ending my remarks, considering that he got 9 or 10% of the vote in 2007, let's see if, as his campaign continues, whether he can reach that or even go, far beyond that figure. But I think the kind of surprise or the unexpected nature of that announcement, perhaps it will take longer for people to absorb that and consider that as even in his home area, as a viable choice. On the other hand, it may be that given the fact that we've had this very open contest between William Ruto and Raila Odinga for the last couple of years, that maybe many of those people, their minds are made up. We have 17% in Lower Eastern who say they're not decided, and then 9% who either won't vote or wouldn't answer the question. But we'll just have to see. That's why we don't stop now and say there's no need to do any more survey between now and the election, because tuna hakika mambo yatabadilika. Atakaa hivyo. We just don't know in what direction and to what extent. You people are asking two difficult questions today.
Utafiti, jina langu ni Boni kutoka TV.
Asante.
Kwa sababu utafiti kunafanyika kwa njia ya simu. Kupitia simu, kama kupitia simu. Ningependa kujua kama mko na detail kuonyesha kwamba hao watu wametoka mahali fulani, kuna kupigia simu nauliza kwamba kwa Machakos, kwa Turkana, alafu unauliza kwamba wana umri wa miaka gani, wanapiga kura, wanakura hivi ama ilikuwa vipi?
Ndio, tunawauliza maswali kama haya, lakini sijaelewa maswali lako haswa nini.
Tunauliza hivi.
Yeah?
Kwamba mkiwapigia simu, mlikuwa mnauliza wanatoka maeneo gani?
Ndio, tunahakikisha wanaishi wapi, na umri, jinsia inaonekana kutokana na hali ya sauti, lakini si lazima kuuliza wewe ni mwanamke au mwanamume. Anyway, endelea. Umri tunauliza.
Mnayo data.
Ndio. Sure, tulikuonyesha, sio?
Tom, how the database is compiled.
Yes. Lakini ni vile, na tena ni vizuri unaelewa, hizo simu zinapigiwa, sio kubahatisha. Katika miaka 6 iliyopita, kila utafiti, wakati Tifa walipeleka vijana mashinani kuhoji watu kuhusu utafiti wa aina yoyote, kama ni afya, kama ni kilimo, kama ni elimu, hali ya uhalifu ama nini. Mwisho wa wahojiwa, tunawauliza wahojiwa ikiwa wako na simu yao mwenyewe au katika mtu mwingine anaishi naye nyumbani, na ni karibu 90% Kenya siku hizi kuna at least mobile phone moja kwa kila nyumba. Halafu kama anasema ndio niko nayo, ama kakangu ama mume wangu yuko na simu, tunawauliza kama watakubali kutupatia hiyo simu namba, ili wakati mwingine ujao kama tunafanya utafiti, badala ya kupeleka vijana mashinani kuhoji watu, bali ni kuwapigia simu, na karibu wote wanatupatia, sababu Wakenya wanapenda sana kuhojiwa, kutoa maoni yao, na ni vile vile kwa companies nyingine za utafiti. Kwa hivyo Tifa iko na sijui laki ngapi namba za hizo simu, kwa hivyo tunaweza kupata wahojiwa katika kila pembe Kenya. Good question. Yes?
Yeah, my name is Emmanuel from TV Magharibi, and my concern report is on Raila Karua ticket and Ruto ticket, whereby in percentage it shows that Raila Karua ticket in Western region they have 49%, and Ruto ticket have 26%, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, 49 versus 26.
Does it mean that Wetangula and Mudavadi will not be able to deliver 70%?
I think you better ask them that question. In our previous survey, we showed what was the support for Raila versus Ruto in Western before and after. Honorable Wetangula and former Vice President and Deputy Prime Minister Mudavadi switch. So you can check the previous figures on the Tifa website. And I saw one other hand here, our friend again. You had one other question, or you're okay? No, that's it. Okay, thank you very much. And you have our contacts here at the bottom. Whoops. And I don't mind giving you out my mobile phone number if you need to call me as you're writing your stories for any other details, which is 0733 637 023. No calls after midnight, please. 0733 637 023. If you, your editors, your writers, whatever, need to phone me about anything, but my email is also there. Thank you very much. On a bus in London one day, years ago when I was studying in England, and I got off the bus at night. It was very cold in winter. I got off the bus on the street, and there are 3 Africans holding big gunias, arguing with each other where is the closest place in Swahili to go and fua nguo. Kuna wapi laundromat tunaweza kupeleka hizo nguo tufue? Mmoja anasema iko moja hii pande huu, mwingine anasema hapana, kuna karibu zaidi. Halafu mimi nakauliza kwa Kiswahili, tafadhali niwasaidie kivipi? Wakashangaa, tukaenda kwa pombe. Wakasahau mambo ya kufua nguo, tulikuwa marafiki. Okay, do I need to look at the data or not?